thanks everybody for being here. I'm glad you're all here. And I've spoken a little bit with each of you, some of you so far, a little bit this evening about some of the things with this body of work here. It was a unique circumstance to find this art. Inquired about an artist coming here for a show, and that artist was just too busy, and we only had a little bit of lead time. I said, I just can't make it. Can you hear what I'm saying? Can you hear? Am I speaking loud enough for you? Okay, good. Okay. And this woman said, oh, we've just got this going on that, so let's try to make it a date later. We'll have you for a show. And here she is paperwork. Well, a couple of weeks or maybe a week and a half later, because we were still looking to find who we were going to have for the show, she called me and she said, hey, we have this friend, these people we know, who have this body of work that they acquired, and it would probably be perfect because they have the work and they're willing and they want to have a show, and it would probably not that hard for you to put together a show for this. So that was Jeff and Sheila Boyd, and they live in Oakhurst, California, and they own the body of work from this artist, Bonnie Bisbee. So that became like, well, yeah, if we can maybe get a couple of paintings or something, we can put something together. Well, they have 97 paintings of her work. And I spoke to them on the phone and I emailed them, and at the beginning I thought, this is not going to be easy because they're probably not going to want to come all the way here, and they're going to want me to pick the paintings up, they're going to want me to direct, but it wasn't like that at all. I mean, that was my own thought. When I spoke to them, though, they were very eager. And then I did research, I looked at some of the work, and I thought, that's kind of interesting. And when I went, I spoke on the phone and I said, I have to come and meet you, and we have to talk more. Because they were interested, we were interested in the show, and so I drove up there and I met them. And they have a home and they have a business in Oakhurst. And when I walked in and I met them, and the first thing that I did is I walked in and I just saw the paintings, and I just sort of had cold chills. I said, man, these are something. People would get something out of seeing these, and we have a museum and a gallery facility, and we have a community that we could utilize these paintings very, very well for the art community. We'd love to have something like this. And it's not in San Francisco or New Jersey, it's just up the road.
I asked the question, how do they have these paintings stored in their house?
We'll be doing some question and answer later. Thanks, Greg. And we had these ideas to put this show together. So we said, hey, let's do it. I put together a mock-up of the gallery scale to 1 inch equals 1 foot. Shane introduced me to this technique where you can actually print out your paintings at the small scale, place them on the wall, figure it out. So we had everything figured out. Jeff and Sheila Boyd, the owners of the work, delivered the paintings on the morning of the show, which was the 10th of January. On the morning of the show, of the opening, and we brought them in, and Shane and I and Jeff hung these paintings on the wall and had the show that evening. And that's just how we had to do it because they were out of town prior to that. But anyway, we got these paintings here. We had our opening. It was really a good time for everybody. And for me, the idea was that we are in such a unique circumstance. Just one more show, just one more show. We're continuing to keep that going, and this was just a perfect fit for this one. We just came in, we got it on the wall, it's beautiful. People are privileged to be able to see this work. It's probably not, it may be shown more, that's the hope. They'd love to promote it, they'd love to sell the work, but who knows? And these paintings haven't been shown. They had one show at Madeira 4 or 5 years ago, and that's it. So this is a unique experience. But what I want to talk about now is more about the background of the type of art this is, her life and her process of the art, and all how that kind of ties together, and kind of her story as an artist. And so that's what I like to do, is to just describe some of these things that behind the work. There are so many themes going on. People have asked before, was she this nationality or that nationality? Because you think, the religion shows this or that. It wasn't that. It was because she was so knowledgeable about the world of religion, all of the religions, Christianity, Buddhism, Native American, probably many others that I'm not even familiar with. And you see it in the work, and you say, well, what was she doing? Where was she going with this? Well, she was a visionary artist. And that's the title of the show is Bonnie Bisbee, Visionary Artist. And it's the other thing we added to that was the Great Circle Dance. And I'll explain more about that. And you'll get it at the end, I hope. You'll get the whole circle dance in a way. But she is an artist who started out in her early career. She knew she was, as a child, she knew she was an artist. She knew she was drawing and painting all the time. And many of us can relate to that. We knew that we just never knew anything different. We always wanted to do that. She did that. She aspired to be an artist. She made her way through until in her young years she decided to go to college and further her career. But there were a lot of things that happened after that and in her story that I'd like to talk about as well. But I'd like to first go back and talk about what visionary art is. And what visionary art is kind of a term. What does it mean? You have a vision? You know, you can see. What does it mean? Well, today when I was thinking about it, this notion of visionary art really has always been in human existence. Because what it is it's a striving to find meaning in the world, to find meaning in the day, in yourself, to find meaning in the world that we live in. And it just so happens that some people have the ability to put it on a canvas or on a rock or something. And it occurred to me that the cave paintings in Lascaux, France, and other places around the world, those go back to 15 to 20,000 years ago. Think about that. 15 to 20,000 years ago. We're talking about, this person and that person, I've known them for 20 years. That's a long time. And those people back then were very crude. Their life was very crude, but it was probably very fulfilling. Why? Because they had a mind, they had a brain. Their brain said, the sun, it's the sun. Now the moon. And these things became identities of the world. The beast that they had to survive to go and get a deer or something. And the beast that fought them, the beast that killed their relatives. So their whole world sort of revolved around the natural world. And what was happening to them was that they weren't just fighting it, surviving it. They were developing thoughts about it. They were developing ideas about what if we pray to the deer? Or what if we pray to the crocodile? Don't eat us, They started developing ideas of religion. And they started developing their search for what it meant to be human amongst other humans. I don't only want to figure it out for myself, they might say. I want to figure it out for my cousin, I want him to know that, hey, if we pay tribute, so it became a shared thing. So it became something that is very close to what you might say is early visionary artistic desires. They wanted to find those answers and figure that out. And so that's what I think is the essence in the beginning. It happened all the way through our current timeline, all the way through in all these cultures. The Greek society, they have all the gods and the goddesses. It's not that they're doing the same thing as a visionary artist is contemporarily doing. It's that they were seeking those things out, and they had to do with their contemplation of life and what's out there and what we mean in it and what it means to us. What it means is basically meaning. And not everybody goes there. Not everybody wants to. Not everybody thinks about life that way. But some people live that way in their life. And they don't not only live it, they express it. So that's what you have in this idea of what visionary art is. And that just came to me about these ideas. This painting over here this represents what she had as a young girl, as this vision. What I just explained has a lot to do with the physical world and a lot of mental ideas, but dreams are a part of that. Well, dreams were the biggest part of this work. in her life, because she really depended on those dreams. Her dream, whatever her world was like, these things came to her in dreams. And she had this as a recurring dream from when she was a child. This horse became like an entity to her, an angel, you might say. And she would call on this thing. I don't know if any of you have had dreams where you go, hey, Uncle, or hey, Dave, or you call out somebody or God. You say, I need help in your dream. Well, in her dream, this was her associate being that she would have to protect her. And then she envisioned herself riding this horse through the universe and flying through this universe with her horse, her protector, and looking and envisioning planets and solar systems. She saw that as a young girl. She didn't know what it meant. And then later, when she became an adult, she finds out, oh, they got a Hubble spaceship, Hubble telescope. They've got this, they've got that. They found all these things out, and she was blown away that, oh, what I saw had some reality. And so she was really in tune, it seems, with all of these things. But all of this being said, she had this inner, she wanted to do these things. So she was born in 1941, and she died in 2021 at the age of 80. And she had her early aspirations. She wanted to go to school, so she went to San Francisco, the Art Institute, for a little while. And then I guess she had an opportunity. She went to Ecole in Paris, France, which in English means School of Fine Art. And she went there, she got her education from there. She came back and finished up at San Francisco Art Institute. And she had a couple of shows while she was in Europe. She came back. So she got her bachelor's and her master's degree at the San Francisco Institute of Art. She was, at that time, emerging as an artist, but she was still young. And she had had a situation occur in which she had been around her peers, and I'm not sure if it was just a cultural climate at the time, it probably was, but she was told things like, well, a woman really hasn't been, there haven't been very many famous women artists. And, it's not likely that, that kind of thing. And they also put down her notion of her being connected to these spiritual things. They didn't understand it. They saw it through their own lens of their own ideas, which we've all had that. Hey, I'm thinking of doing this, taking a class. Oh, why are you doing that? You don't need to do that. It's not going to gain you anything. Well, that's what happened to her. And her art fell. She probably pushed it out because she said, as artists, some of us are familiar with that. She said, no, okay, fine. But she couldn't get away from herself. She couldn't be who she was. But what she did was engage in a systematic shutdown of her outward expression. So she began painting these paintings that were of her self-portrait type situation, woman in a dark room, little light coming from a window, almost caged in a way, dark, no color. She just did these, and I think she was just expressing herself, expressing her inner thoughts of what she was having to deal with, what her life had become. Here she probably had these big grandiose ideas, and now she's dealing with that. So what occurred, and this is around the time after she had actually gone through the Art Institute. She's evolving as an artist, but that was when she was culturally connected to all these other artists. Apparently, she had a dream. And her dream was, again, the dreams are ever present in all this whole story. But she had a dream that there was a big fire somehow. All of her work that she had ever produced was burned all the way to nothing. And the only thing that survived was one painting that she had recently made that was colorful. It was a self-portrait. It had animals. So she had discovered in her dream that was the direction. That was this idea that you go. This is your direction, you go as an artist. So that's what changed her. That's what turned her back to where she started doing these kinds of work again. So she developed this going forward as an adult with pure intent. Now she knew what she was going to do. Now she had this effort to get these things done this way. So that began her career basically as we see the work that we see now. She was interested in showing people these things because she wanted to relate to people her thoughts about them. She was painting these things not commercially. She wasn't interested in seeing what the latest trend was or finding out what's hot and just trying to figure something out and maybe I can get. She was painting these because she had to live it. She lived these paintings. And she lived them because she was a spiritual, very spiritual person. And she had a lot of ties to the metaphysical, spiritual world, and these things meant a lot to her. And she knew that there were people that they meant a lot to as well. And we find today, maybe someone just walked through the gallery, someone said, oh, yeah, I get something from that. And so that's why this is such a unique opportunity to have these, that we have to view personally. But I think her story was one that was really fascinating, that she had a husband. Her husband was a dentist. Most of the latter part of her life and their life, they lived in Oakhurst, California. And he was a dentist, she was a painter. That's what she did. That's what she did. When these people acquired these paintings, they acquired these paintings, each and every one of these, others too, all framed. They acquired the paintings and all the frames. Now imagine how much that would cost us. These are expensive frames. I mean, if you've never gone and had to try to get a little, $100, what? And so this is the thing about this, is that this is a unique collection that we have an opportunity to show here. Let me look at my notes and see if I'm sure I didn't get everything I wanted to say. There's a couple of things I wanted to relate as well. There's a couple of quotes from her that I want to read to you as well. She had a couple of quotes about what she thought about when she thought about the world and how she thought about things that lead you to understand a little bit more about maybe what it was like for her every day. Like some people get up and and then some people are like, hey, how you doing? And some people are like, too much, hey, how you doing? They're too happy. But I think that a couple of these I got here. This one. Nature wove its tapestry of color, movement, and sound around me. The stringent call and flash of a strident blue jay, the muted yellow gold of summer grass, the shy grace of moving deer across the meadow. She's observant. She has the patience to look at these things and feel that it's wonderful. And it is. Trish talked about the other day coming in here without the lights, and the sunlight was shining in the morning and reflecting off the gold of these paintings. That was a moment. That was a moment for Trish. The rushing, chuckling stream, all of nature's bounty filled me with instinctive joy. So she was looking for that, and she was painting that. And that's what I think is one of the essence, the essential things that she brings to the work, is you can see it. There's nothing in here where there's a crane and it's crashing into a building and it's tearing it down. That's fine, that's somebody else's story. But that's not what's going on here. The other part of it that I wanted to mention is her technique. How she's doing what she's doing. First of all, some people comment about colors. They say, oh, the colors. Yeah, that's right, there's colors. There's colors everywhere. Well, why do colors be colors? Because some gray or some brown stands back a little bit to the background, takes a seat, and lets the bright yellow shine. There's contrast in those colors. There's a reason that there's color that shows up, because the other subordinate colors are allowing it to take the stage. They're allowing the other part to read. she's doing that as in her concept of painting, but that's the reason. This is probably really one of the most just saturated in color. But when you see these movements of color within the paintings, that's because it's not all color. There's not bright colors everywhere. And when she wants you to see something, she wants you to take note of something she's trying to show you, like a symbol or something that she's trying to say. Then all of a sudden you have these moments of color. You have the line work, which there's line work, but her technique was painted, all her paintings were painted with tiny brushes, 1/8 of an inch wide. When they found her studio, her widest brush was 1/2 of an inch wide. Now we all know when we paint larger painting, we want a big old brush and we want to cover around. She never worked that way. And so you'll see that. You'll see also what's in photography called the depth of field. Where you have this limited space of focus. You don't see all the way to the Rockies and then see the little bumblebee at the same. You don't see that. That's a deep, deep field. You see what's between the back of the wall and the back of the chair. You see that little tiny space. So she's reduced the spatial aspect to a limited area. She doesn't want you. A couple of times you'll see horizons, but even in that, they're still sort of flatly rendered. You don't. She's close it in, so she wants us to look at these particular things and not get caught up in the depth of it, going way under the background. There's those kind of techniques. And the other thing about her compositions is they are well delineated. You know, we spoke earlier about that. She's carved it out so this is what you see. It's not going into fog or half the torso is fading away. No, she's got everything down to where she wants you to see it. And she's revealing her message. And she does not want to have any possibility of a fragment of some idea. She's saying, this is what I want you to see. And that's what we see. I think that's why it hit us in the face, because we say, oh, I get it. I mean, I don't even know what it's about. I don't get that. But I get the visual of it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I do have one more quote from her that kind of like to tell you about. That's how we kind of thought of this idea of the title for the show. In talking about all of these things that we talked about, all the cultural things, she was just a part of the world. She wasn't the whole world. But to her, the whole world was a part of her. And that's like all of us. We just drive our car and come home. We're all part of the same thing. It's magnificent. It's something. Big deal. That's what her message is. That's what she's saying to us. And so, you know, we can just kind of think about other issues, but we can ignore that. But that's my idea of what her message is. And that's why this is kind of relevant to me. I spoke about it at the opening, but I don't think it got the punchline. I hope that you would see now what it means for us to talk about this. Her quote was, "Now that I'm far along in my life's journey, I love these things all the more. How fragile they are in these exquisitely crucial times. I think the most important message my art can bring is that all living things are intimately related and ecstatically alive." And then she just ends that statement by saying, "The great circle hands." Well, that's her version of talking about this whole continuum, in my opinion, of everything that ties together about it all. So that's basically what I had to say tonight, and if anyone does have any questions, I'm happy to answer.